So the early 1930s weren't a particularly nice time for planet Earth. The Wall Street crash wiped the floor with many companies, and actually it nearly took the company that made this. So how lucky we are they survived. This is the Hammond D100, the famous Hammond organ series, and it's just fantastic. It's very similar to the B3 and C3 models and the A100, which are the sort of industry standard ones, if you will. Now, the raison d'etre of this, it's a church organ synth. That's what it was designed to do. This wasn't designed to go out and play gigs or do tours or whatever. Hammond saw no financial reason to do that. And actually, he was right. Many people bought these and put them in their homes. So it's a fairly big piece of kit, this, especially with the speaker system that's attached to it. You've got to have quite a big living room. So how this works is, instead of the church organ, which has pipes, which are where the sound comes from, and the stops, which is how you control the sound, the electrical equivalents in the Hammond organ are tonewheels, which generate the sound, and drawbars, which then control that sound. So what we have is a row of 9 drawbars. You can see there are 4 rows of drawbars here, but actually they are 2 for each of the manuals. You've got the swell here and the grate, which is another sort of, load of terminology taken over from the church organ world. So here we've got, for example, the A above middle C. You get 440 cycles per second on the 3rd harmonic, or 3rd slider in. It's the 1st harmonic, or the fundamental. There we go. And then the next octave up is the next harmonic, and then we've got another octave there, and another octave there. So you've got lots of different A's. Sounds pretty church organ-y, I hope you'll agree. Now, the harmonics that are in between are different notes of the harmonic series. We have the A, which is the 1st harmonic. The 3rd one is the 5th and an octave above that. Then we've got another one of those near the top. But just below that, we've got the major 3rd. There it is. And that's what you use these as well to make your sound even more complex. And then we get the 2 below that, which are actually called subharmonics, which just add a little bit of body to your harmonics. So we've got the A there, and the octave below, and then the 5th above that fundamental. And you think, well, why is it to the left? And the answer is it's not in the harmonic series. So they just put any extras to the left. So the idea is that you can create flute sounds. You can get sort of clarinet. We mustn't forget that this is a synthesizer, but it's synthesizing something that was already a synthesizer. You go to any church organ, you see trumpet or flute or whatever it happens to be, tromba or clarinet. There's all sorts of things that a church organ is designed to do. Really, it was the one-man band, if you will. In a church, you had to be able to do all sorts of things on it. And what you do between verses of a hymn, for example, is have a combination of stops that gave it just a different timbre. And you can do that on here as well with these reverse coloured keys. Now this sort of pertains to the sort of church organ stops, where you have various sounds which are now not connected to your drawbars. If I play the keys at the moment, there's nothing there because all the drawbars are shut. But if I press one of these other ones, I get all the sort of the preset stops. I've butchered that one. So that's just a standard church organ you know, combination of things. The C at the bottom silences the manual completely, so any drawbars that are out, no sound at all. You might want that. So the B and the B flat here, the last two black, well, reverse coloured keys, as it were, are these two banks of drawbars respectively. So these two on the left here are for the swell manual, and these are for the great, the bottom one. And what jazz organ players usually do is they'll bring out the first three drawbars with something called percussion. Now this was a thing that was added in the 50s to make a Hammond organ a bit more of a solo instrument, a bit more sort of, you know, cutting over a drum kit or something. You know, if I was doing, I don't know, a blues. It's a bit flat sounding. If I had the percussion, it's got more dynamics and a bit more punch. Now the harmonics are directly derived from the tone wheels, so if I just bring that A up again, when I switch the percussion on, I get a chime that's an octave above or an octave and a fifth above. So that you use, it says on here, percussion harmonic selector, second or third. So that second harmonic is exactly the same as the fourth drawbar in, except that it's just got a bit of an attack to it. And the attack can be either soft or normal, which is sort of louder, or it can be fast and slow. So people like Jack McDuff used to use this on its own as a sound. So you'd have the sort of but the percussion only actually applies to the first note played. So if you do this and hold the note down, none of the others will work. So this really is for single line work. Or chords, where they're all literally the notes go down at once. Usually you'd use percussion in combination with your drawbars. Now we have the speaker system here. This is the Leslie 147, which is really one of the top of the range models. And it was made by a company called Leslie. You think, okay, Hammond, Leslie, why? Hammond made speaker cabinets when he first marketed these. But a certain young gentleman called Don Leslie bought himself a Hammond organ. He was a musician. Hammond wasn't. He had no musical ability at all. Quite ironic, really, with the sort of this icon of 20th century keyboard technology. But Don Leslie bought himself a Hammond, but he decided that he'd make his own speaker system instead. And this thing here has got two speakers in it. It's got a bass unit and a treble unit. But the bass unit is a speaker that faces downwards into a drum that rotates. And that's how it's throwing sound around a room. If you're listening on headphones and I just play a chord, just hold a chord, you can hear the sound washing around in the stereo image, albeit very subtly. Now, it's got one other setting, which is just called, it's the faster setting. We're listening to something called chorale at the moment. That is the setting that it's known as. And then tremolo is when you speed it up. Now, because it's motors and pulleys and belts and all that, it takes a short time to reach that high speed. But that's nice in itself. So the top speaker is a smaller speaker, but it plays into this pair of trumpets, but only one of them is open, the other is closed. It's like a dummy, so that the thing rotates. It's like taking a rotor off a helicopter. You know, you can imagine the consequences of that. So this thing just revolves around either like that or like that, and it just throws sound around a room, because Leslie wanted to simulate that sort of the church organ sound moving around a space, that is the church or the cathedral that it's sat in. So again, there's a design brief there, there's a problem to be solved, and he solved it quite well. Now it's nice to vary these drawbars as you're going. If you listen to Give Me Strength, it's off 461 Ocean Boulevard, the Eric Clapton album, you can hear the Hammond in the background just adding so much to that tune. Oh Lord, give me strength to carry on. Oh, give me strength to carry on. Though I may be out on the highway, ooh, love done so much wrong. To keep me, give me strength to carry on. Ooh. So the gospel scene, the whole gospel thing in America, well, and worldwide really, revolves around this Hammond organ. This whole new sound could be produced where a church organ could not do that. Now, of course, there are things that this can't do that the church organ can. This isn't meant to be a direct replacement, but many churches installed a Hammond because you didn't need to tune them. They were pretty easy to service and to look after. They will withstand years of neglect. You're meant to drop a little bit of oil into the case that houses all the tone wheels that generate the notes. There are 91 tone wheels inside the Hammond, and they're all different sizes or different numbers of teeth, and they revolve at different speeds. But this is testament to Hammond's engineering prowess. I mean, this is a man who had 100 patents by the time he died in 1973. One of his first gigs was, well, he didn't get it, but he designed an automatic transmission system for a car in 1907 when he was 12. I mean, that gives you an idea of his single-minded determination to do good things and to make things up. He came up with 3D cinema in the 1920s. You know, we think we're being modern by going and watching a 3D presentation. It's a 90-year-old idea, and it's Hammond's. So there's all sorts of things that he's done over the years. Some not so nice things, like he got caught up in guided missile systems and things like that, but he designed sort of gyroscopes, and so he's just a really rather smart kiddie. Now, in addition to the fast and slow speeds here, we have an electrical sort of, it's not the same, but it sounds the same to some people. Where it's a vibrato, it's like a sort of, it's actually a chorus or a vibrato. You've got chorus at the moment, or vibrato, where vibrato varies the pitch and chorus is a bit more subtle than that. And you can have both things. So there we go, there is the Hammond. It's such a nice thing to play. Every time I come in here, I just think, oh, I'm just going to have half an hour on it. I look at my watch and 4 hours is gone. You know, it's just a lovely thing. Usually you'd have bass pedals. Now, Hammonds were initially sold with a load of bass pedals, a 25-note pedal board. Church organs traditionally have 32, but Hammond looked at the church organ bass pedals and went, well, there's no wear on the top of the, on the top 7, so let's not bother. Another cost-saving exercise. These were expensive back in the day, but they sold very, very well. So that's hence the reason for sort of struggling a bit with trying to play the bass line and switching the speed of the Leslie. Now, excuses. But in the modern sort of studio, Hammond is usually just played with the manuals and not the bass pedals, because other problem solvers, other genius inventions of the 20th century, such as the Fender Precision bass, have just made it slightly easier for the organist. So if I was doing that solo, so it makes it difficult with the trying to play the bass. Usually, if you were going to do that, you'd set up the bottom manual to be quite a simple sound. And you can actually use the solo here with chords here, so you can go. Now, the action of a Hammond organ is not all that familiar to keyboard or to pianists, really, or church organists. Now, the reason for that is if you're on a church organ and you've got lots of the stops out, the action becomes heavier. There's more air to shift up through various different pipes and various filters and all that sort of thing. So it has the resultant that it makes it harder to switch that air supply on, whereas the Hammond has completely the same action regardless of the number of drawbars, because it's all electronic. Underneath each key are things called bus bars, which are just contacts where the key lowers onto 9 contacts. So it's very, very complex, very complicated. Changing a set of bus bars, which does need doing from time to time, is a mammoth job. But it's so worth it when you've got something like this in your studio that can add so much to your mix. Something like, I mean, this is just used constantly on people's records. I mean, you know, the Fix You. It just sounds nice, and you can't really get that from anything else. There are many plugins on the market which simulate a Hammond, and they do it very well, but there is nothing like sitting at an organ like this and hearing the speaker system encased in a beautiful piece of wood with its own sonorous qualities. There is nothing like that at all. So there we go. There it is, the Hammond organ, the genius manufacturing, genius keyboard of the 20th century.